My mother-in-law, Agnes, slapped my 7-year-old daughter at Christmas dinner. She laughed, calling it discipline. But she never saw my 9-year-old son in the corner and the one button he pressed that would end her reign forever. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The familiar, dull throb of a migraine was already setting in behind my right eye. It was Christmas, which meant we were at my mother-in-law Agnes's house. This was a non-negotiable, command performance event, and as usual, the air was thick with the scent of pine needles and unvoiced tension. "Patricia, that dress is a bit snug, dear, are you sure?" Agnes remarked as I carried a bowl of potatoes to the table. Her voice was light, but the criticism was, as always, precision-sharp. I am a librarian. I live in a world of categorization, of quiet order and facts. But in Agnes's world, I was always disorganized, too soft and perpetually snug in my clothes. My husband, David, gave a weak, peacemaking laugh from the doorway. "Mom, please, it's Christmas. Trish looks great." "I'm only thinking of her, David," Agnes said, not looking at him. I just wanted to get through the next 3 hours. I sat down, positioning myself between my 2 children, 9-year-old Ben, who was already disappearing into the world of his tablet, and 7-year-old Lily, who was vibrating with Christmas excitement. The dinner began. The usual topics: Agnes's garden, a cousin's unasked for career advice, and subtle digs at my hobby of a job. Then came the peas. They were an unnerving shade of gray, boiled into submission. Lily, ever honest, wrinkled her nose. "No thank you, Grandma." Agnes's smile tightened. "It's not an offer, young lady. You'll eat what you're given." "But it's yucky," Lily whispered, looking to me for help. "Lily, just try a little," I murmured, trying to de-escalate. "No, you're being mean," Lily finally said, her voice rising in a childish protest. The room went silent. Agnes's face, usually a mask of polite control, went dark. "I will not be spoken to that way. You are spoiled, ungrateful, and lacking all discipline." And then it happened, fast as a snake. Agnes reached across the table and slapped Lily, hard, across the face. The sound was sharp, like a firecracker. Lily's head snapped to the side. A bright red handprint began to bloom on her small cheek. The world stopped. All I could hear was the ringing in my ears and Lily's single, sharp intake of breath before the wail. The sting of that slap on my daughter's face was a pain I felt in my own soul. "Agnes!" My voice came out as a strangled cry. I lunged forward, pulling Lily out of her chair and into my lap, her small body already shaking with sobs. "What did you do?" Agnes, incredibly, had the audacity to look annoyed. She picked up her napkin and dabbed at her lips. "Oh, it was a tap. My goodness, Patricia, you're raising her to be a complete snowflake. In my day, a child who spoke back got far worse." I looked at David, my eyes screaming for him to do something. He was frozen. His face was pale, his mouth slightly open. He looked from his mother to his crying daughter and back. "Mom, come on, that was too much." "It was what was needed," Agnes snapped. "Lily, honey, apologize to your grandmother," David said, his voice pleading. "Patricia, let's just... Everyone calm down, it's Christmas. Let's not ruin Christmas." Ruin Christmas? I felt a rage so cold and pure it almost eclipsed my shock. He was asking our daughter to apologize. He was trying to smooth this over. I held Lily, rocking her, my heart hammering against my ribs. I looked around the table. David's aunts, his uncles, his cousins, every single one of them was staring intently at their plate of food. The silence was a physical weight, a thick blanket of complicity. They had all seen it, and they were all choosing to be blind. Agnes, seeing she had won, let out a small, satisfied huff. She picked up her fork. "Well, let's not let this good food get cold just because of a little tantrum." She was smug. She had done the unthinkable, and my own husband, her son, had capitulated in under 10 seconds. She had all the power. I looked at her, this perfectly coiffed, 70-year-old tyrant, as she calmly took a bite of turkey. But Agnes had made a fatal mistake. She was loud and she was proud. And she never, ever noticed the quiet ones. For 15 years, I had been the quiet one in this family. I was Patricia, the librarian. The gentle, mousy bookworm who had somehow landed her successful, charismatic son. I was the one who kept the schedules, managed the household, and supported David's high-pressure sales career, moving twice for his promotions. My sacrifices were simply acted. My job, a position I had earned with a master's degree, was a constant source of ridicule for Agnes. "Such a hobby, dear," she'd say at gatherings. "It's sweet you have somewhere to go, but it's not a real career like David's, is it?" Her entire life was dedicated to being the matriarch. It wasn't just about respect, it was about absolute control. She would come to our house and reorganize my kitchen, leaving passive-aggressive notes about my inefficient pantry. She made constant, cutting remarks about my parenting. Lily was too wild. She was just an energetic child. Ben was too solitary. He was just an introvert who loved to read and build complex worlds on his tablet. Her cruelty was always disguised as concern. Her polished appearance, the iron-creased slacks, the pearl earrings, the smile that never, ever reached her cold blue eyes, was a perfect uniform. But beneath it was a deep, unnerving interest in our lives, specifically our assets. "David, you simply must make sure your name is on the house title, dear," I'd heard her whisper to him just last month. "Patricia is so unorganized. You have to protect your family's assets from anything." She wasn't just a critic, she was a saboteur. She viewed me as an incompetent temporary guardian of her son and her grandchildren. And tonight, she had finally crossed the line from psychological warfare to physical assault. She had put her hands on my child, and in her arrogance, she assumed I would do what I always did: swallow my anger, smooth it over for David, and quietly take it. She had no idea what was coming. The dinner was poised on a knife edge. Lily's sobs had quieted into hiccuping whimpers against my shoulder. Agnes was demanding someone control that child. David was still trying to find a magical third option where no one was angry. I was about to stand, to take my children and walk out that door, David or no David. I was done. And then, a small, clear voice cut through the tension. It wasn't a tap, Grandma. Every head turned. It was Ben. He was sitting in the armchair in the corner, where he'd been for most of the dinner, forgotten by everyone. He had his tablet in his hands, but it wasn't held like a game. It was held up, the camera lens pointed directly at the table. His face was pale, but his voice was steady. Agnes's eyes narrowed. "What did you say to me, young man? Put that wretched machine down and come to the table." "You hit her," Ben said, his voice gaining strength. "You hit her. Hard, I recorded it." My migraine, my rage, my panic, it all vanished, replaced by a sudden, icy clarity. This was the turning point. The clever trap wasn't mine, it was my son's, but I knew exactly how to use it. As a librarian, my entire profession is built on the organization and dissemination of information. And my son had just handed me the most important file of my life. I gently set Lily down and walked over to Ben. "Ben, honey, can I see that?" "Patricia, don't you dare encourage this," Agnes shrieked, finally dropping her mask of calm. "He's being disrespectful and he's lying." "Is he?" I said. I took the tablet. My hands weren't even shaking. I pressed the play icon on the most recent video file. The entire scene replayed in the stunned silence. The argument, "Lily's, you're being mean." And then, clear as day, the sound of the slap, Lily's cry, and Agnes's voice, sharp and cruel, shouting, it was a tap. The video ended. I looked up, no one breathed. The investigation was over. I held the tablet in my hand like a weapon, but I didn't look at Agnes. I didn't look at the frozen, guilty faces of the relatives. I looked directly at my husband. "David," I said, my voice quiet but carrying across the room, "your mother just assaulted our daughter, and now she's lying about it." David's face was ashen. "Trish, come on. Assaulted is a strong word. It's, Mom, what were you thinking? It's a doctored video, Agnes shrieked, lurching to her feet. That boy is always on that machine. You've taught him to lie, Patricia. This is your fault. The lies were so desperate, so poorly executed, they were laughable. The video was right there, raw and undeniable. Did you all hear that? I asked the table at large. It's a doctored video. My 9-year-old son, Ben, is apparently a Hollywood special effects artist. Aunt Karen, would you like to see the doctoring up close? Aunt Karen, to her credit, flinched and looked away. The trap was sprung. I didn't need to yell. I just needed to present the facts. I turned back to my husband, the man I loved, the man who was failing our family in real time. David, your mother is calling our son a liar to cover up the fact that she hit our daughter. What are you going to do about it? Patricia, you give me that tablet. Agnes lunged at me, her fingers curled like claws. You are ruining Christmas. I will not be spoken to this way in my own home. I ebbed back, holding the tablet out of her reach, my body angled between her and my children. Don't touch me, Agnes, I said, and in that moment, I think she finally saw that the mousy librarian was gone. I wasn't just organized, I was angry. Agnes was breathing heavily, her mask of composure completely shattered. You've always been a weak, pathetic little thing, she snarled at me, poisoning my son against me, turning my grandchildren into fragile, disrespectful brats. Mom, that's enough, David finally roared, finding his voice. Oh, so you're on her side now, Agnes spun on him. After everything I've done for you, after I raised you, I paid for your college, I knew I had one move left. I had to break David's paralysis for good, and I had to strip Agnes of her power over the rest of the room. The case wasn't just the video, it was the distribution. I looked at the relatives, who were still staring at their plates as if the gravy held the answers to the universe. You all saw it, I said. You've been seeing things like this for years. Her bullying, her cruelty. Your silence is what let this happen. Then I turned my attention back to the tablet. I pressed the share icon. What's your Wi-Fi password, Agnes? I asked, my voice dangerously sweet. Her face went white. What? Doesn't matter. I'll just use my data. It's a small file. My phone, which was connected to the tablet, began to whir. Ping. Aunt Karen's phone lit up on the table. Ping. Uncle Mike's phone. Ping, ping, ping. I've just sent the video to everyone at this table, I announced. Aunt Karen, Uncle Mike, Cousin Sarah, now you all have a copy, you're all witnesses. Agnes looked around, horrified. Her silent army of enablers was now a jury, each one holding the evidence in their pocket. David pulled out his own phone. He stared at the screen, and I watched him play the video. I saw his shoulders slump as he watched his own son capture his own mother's violence. The spell, woven over 42 years, finally broke. He looked up, his eyes filled with a horror that matched my own. The case was built, distributed, and closed. This was the showdown. Not a whispered argument in the kitchen, but a public trial at the Christmas dinner table. I stood, my voice no longer shaking. It was the calm, clear, and authoritative voice of a librarian telling you that the rules have been broken. We are leaving, I announced. We will not be spending one more second in a home where my children are physically assaulted and then called liars for proving it. Agnes sputtered, You can't, it's Christmas, you'll ruin it. You already did, I said, my voice like ice. You did this. You chose to hit a 7-year-old child, you chose to lie about it, and you chose to do it in front of everyone. I turned to my husband. The entire room was holding its breath. This was his moment. Choose his mother or choose his family. And you, David, I said, my voice softening just a fraction. You've chosen for 15 years to keep the peace. But I need you to understand. Keeping the peace just meant letting your mother abuse me, and now, our children, the peace is over. We are leaving. Are you coming? He looked at his mother, her face twisted in a mask of rage and disbelief. He looked at the relatives, all staring at him. He looked at me, standing with my coat. And then he looked at his children. He looked at Lily, who was hiding behind my legs, her cheek still a shocking red. And he looked at Ben, who had gotten up from the armchair and was standing tall, his empty tablet case held at his side like a shield. David's realization was a physical thing. I saw his spine straighten. He was no longer the son keeping the peace. He was a father. He didn't yell, he didn't argue. He just walked to the closet and picked up his coat. "Agnes," he said, his voice raw, "you will never ever touch my child again. You will never speak to my wife that way again. We're done." He didn't wait for a reply. He walked over and gently took Lily's hand. "Come on, Ben." I took Ben's hand. The four of us, a single, unbroken unit, walked out of that dining room. David followed us without a single look back. We left the entire family in stunned silence, their phones all glowing on the table, the proof of what they had enabled for decades right in front of them. Agnes's downfall was not loud, but it was total. The video, now in the hands of the entire extended family, did its work. Aunt Karen, who had long been sick of Agnes's tyranny but too afraid to speak up, was the first to show it to other relatives who weren't there. The social exile was swift. Agnes's New Year's Day party, usually another mandatory command performance, was attended by no one. She was left alone in her perfect, silent house, her power shattered by a 9-second clip captured by a child she never paid attention to. The car ride home that Christmas night was painfully silent. When we got inside and the children were in their rooms, David finally broke. He sat on the stairs and just unraveled. "I'm so sorry, Trish," he wept. "I'm so sorry. I didn't want to see." "I know," I said, sitting beside him. "But sorry isn't enough, not anymore. I am a librarian, I research, I organize." The next day, I used those skills. I found the highest-rated family therapist in our city. I booked an appointment. I put the confirmation on David's desk. "We go, or I go, with the kids." He went. It was the hardest year of our marriage. David had to unlearn 42 years of conditioning, of being taught that keeping the peace with his mother was his primary job. He had to face the fact that his silence was a form of participation. We're not fixed, but we are healing. It's Easter now, months later. We're in our own backyard. There's no tense, perfect dinner. David is at the grill, overcooking hot dogs. Lily is laughing, chasing Ben around the yard. Agnes has called, of course, dozens of times. They started as angry demands, then turned into tearful pleas, then into manipulative, "I'm not well" messages. But her calls go to voicemail. David, in a moment that made me prouder than any of his sales awards, blocked her number on both our phones. I'm sitting on the deck, watching my family. Ben has stopped to show Lily how to use a new coding app on his tablet. David brings me a slightly burnt hot dog. He kisses my temple. "Happy Easter, Trish." I look at him, at this man who is finally my partner. I look at my children who are safe and happy and loud. We are at peace. And it's a peace we built, not one we bought with our silence.